So we are here for a very important reason, which is that something in the world needs to change. And I deeply believe that the people who are most likely to change it are the people in this creative community. So what needs to change in the world, and I know the gentlemen here agree with me, is that we live in a world, and this is a shocker, get ready, that's still overwhelmingly run by men. And I think we might be able to do better. But when you look at the numbers across every industry in any country, 3% of creative directors are women, less than 6% of the CEO jobs in any country, including the United States, are women. So we have a leadership problem, and we have this leadership problem despite the fact that women got 50% of the college degrees in almost every country in the world 30 years ago. So 30 years is plenty of time for all of that education to enter the workforce and get to those top jobs, and it's not happening. And particularly, it hasn't happened over the last decade. It's been totally flat. So as business people, if a trend goes up for 3 decades and then is flat for a decade, you have to be worried it's never going to go up again or it's going to go down. Since I published Lean In, I've been all over the world. It's been published in many languages. And what I found so striking, and probably the thing I learned the most from the experience, is that while there's huge cultural variety, our culture is so different, from France to the US to different parts of Asia to Africa, our stereotypes of men and women are actually exactly the same. Everywhere in the world, we believe men should lead, men should be results-focused, successful, powerful. Everywhere in the world, we believe women should be subservient, communal, give to others, speak when spoken to. Everywhere in the world, we call little girls bossy, or the equivalent of that word when they lead, and everywhere in the world, we call little boys leaders. And if we're going to get more women into leadership roles, we need that not to go against the stereotypes, but go for it, because decades of social science teaches us what we already know, which is that as human beings, when something surprises us, it goes against our expectations, we dislike it. But when it goes with our expectations, we like it. That means that if we start showing images of women leading, we start giving messages that women can lead, we actually change this. And so what's so exciting about being here with these amazing people and all of you is that this is a chance to talk about what's working, talk about people who are doing things differently. There are so many people in this audience who've created these ads, and I'm going to enjoy calling you out. And if I forget you, you stand up, you lean in, you tell us this was you, because I want to celebrate you, and we want to talk about how important what you're doing can be for how we think about women. So, Getty Images. Let's start with Getty. We're going to start with Jonathan. You are the leading image provider. You've been doing this for a long time. And we worked together to launch the Lean In collection. Can you talk about that? And can you talk about why you did this and why you think it's important?
Oh, absolutely. So Getty Images will be about, well, exactly 20 years old next year. And we've had a belief which at times has been called misguided and at other times has been called downright naive. But the belief goes like this, that images can and do change the world. That there is nothing more powerful than an image to capture somebody in the moment, but more importantly, to get people to change their minds, to get governments to change directions. And we've done this for a long time, and we've been very focused and excited by the impact. And we've done it in a lot of different areas, starting with HIV/AIDS, where we began to show people with AIDS not being hopeless, people with AIDS being proud, and to try and change the perception around the stigmatization of people with AIDS. And we've done this in a number of different fields. To fast forward to about a year ago, was it? Yeah, about a year ago. After Cheryl published the book, we have a creative research team, some of whom are here today, who basically identify trends. And on the back of those trends, they say, well, hold on. On the back of what we're seeing, we need to make sure that when customers come to us, we already have the images. And it doesn't matter if it's active seniors, disabled people actually doing things. And our creative research team saw very early on that female rising, is what we called it internally, was something that resonated. So when you published the book, it was, aha, how can we help to change how women are viewed? And the best way to do that is to provide images which show women in a different light, as well as men, which we'll come on to later on, I'm sure. And so what we did is quite simply, we said, we've got these images, let's hand curate them. Let's go through them with leanin.org and fabulous Jessica Bennett and my colleague Pam Grossman.
They're right there,
those such
two.
A rock star. And if you didn't see their presentation the day before yesterday, you missed something very special. Unbelievable, thanks for that. I mean, we're going to try and do justice to what we're going to be aping what you did as best we can. And what we did is we hand curated the collection, and then we've promoted it. And we're excited to say that these images, and we're going to put out some kind of announcement and you can make a note of it, these images, 2,500 hand-curated images, the sales on these images are up 54%. Believe me, I wish the whole of our business was And that tells me that this is resonating. They've been sold in multiple countries, and we're continuing to add to the collection. So we're, for us, it's a win-win, and we see a lot of places to go with it, and we're just grateful to be working with leanin.org.
So we have the top 5 selling images.
Yeah.
You'll note there's not a single woman eating a single salad. There's particularly no women with babies and briefcases with the babies crying.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a stunning absence of nudity, which is very different from just a few years ago. They even have clothes. So now the fact that it's resonating, selling so well, firstly we want to thank you, the customers, for jumping on the bandwagon and using these images. Look, all we do at Getty Images is provide millions and millions of pictures, and we put those images and video into your hands. And what we'd encourage you to do, as I was talking about yesterday at the Palais, is get rid of the cliche. It's done. Your customers don't want it. It's offensive to them. Yes, there's certain segments of certain markets in certain countries that still want to see that. Fine. But you now have an opportunity, because you have the raw material in your hands, to use those images.
So this ad is for Pantene. It was made by Andrew's company. Let's talk about this. Why do you think this is important, and how do you think this is working?
We did some work about 5 years ago trying to understand what made successful movements. And we did it because we wanted to understand how we could use movements to market brands. And one of the important principles that we found in that is to have a successful movement, you need to have an enemy. And the enemy in this case is words. A picture is worth 1,000 words, but it's not true that sticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never harm you. Words can and do harm you, and they certainly harm your potential to shine strong, which is the mission of Pantene. So we wanted to create a movement against harmful words, and they're harmful not because they're rude, they're harmful because they limit potential. And one of the most striking things that I read in your book, and which David had obviously also read in your book, was how we use words without even knowing we're using words, and how we respond to those words without even knowing we're responding to the words.
I mean, picking up on a point that Andrew just made about the ad making you feel strong, actually, I'm not sure, I don't think the Pantene ad, or indeed that ad, made me feel strong, but it made me feel as a consumer understood. And I think that's what people want. And what I find really interesting about what both of you have said, and the fact that we're sitting here with Facebook and its social media, is that when you don't provide these images and when you don't tell the narratives of the customer base, now they can tell it themselves, which is actually what's going on, and which is why we have had to all respond so fast. That if you don't provide images of successful black people put the images of themselves on social networks and they go everywhere. And that's what I think we're seeing. And as a magazine editor, you know, we spend a huge amount of time thinking, how do we present women in positive ways? We used the last image of the 5 images you showed in Cosmo. I had called, and just to give you a sense of what it's like when you're going through archives and you're looking for material, we were doing a piece on women at their desks. I want a picture of a woman at her desk. And what the photo director came back with was a series of photos of a woman hiding under her desk. This is not powerful. And even though there are many days I have wanted to hide under my desk. And so I think it's incredibly interesting. And you may all know Cheryl as this kind of leader of
But
Facebook.
I hide under my desk all the time.
Well,
I just don't let anyone take pictures of it.
and I mean, I know Cheryl as our careers editor, and so since you've come on board and we excerpted Lean In and we've done several sections together, I have had to think so much harder about how we present women, how we show women, and I'm thrilled you're doing what you're doing. And we are trying very hard to look in all sorts of unlikely places. And actually now the thing that we have found is we can go on Instagram and we can find pictures. I mean, you probably don't want to hear this, but the reality is we can go on Instagram and find images which you can't find, you know, often in the big photo agencies because people are not seeing it, so they're creating it for themselves. And I think it's really important that all of us bear that in mind, actually.
No, what Pantene has shared and allowed us to share is that, as Andrew said, 58 million views, increase in brand favorability. That ad has outperformed 84% of the other brands tested.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Favorability especially strong in younger women of 18 to 24 years. And to your point, it's outperforming engagement by 4 times. So
Fantastic.
This is successful, and that's why I think people from P&G are here, and that's what matters, is for people to understand that.
When I got to Cosmo, I had gone back and read the last 30 years under Helen Gurley Brown. Helen Gurley Brown's really sort of glorious first 20 years at Cosmo, when actually Cosmo was much more like the current Vanity Fair. And she came, you know, it was the perfect time to be an editor because she came to the job literally the same month that the pill was released in America, and there was this big sexual revolution going on, which was quite extraordinary. And when I was thinking about what's going on now, to the points raised around here, there's clearly a revolution going on with women in the workforce. And so my mission, honestly, was, and for those of you who don't know it, Cosmo is the biggest women's magazine in the world. It's the biggest magazine in America. We have 18 million readers of the print version. We have 30 million uniques on the web, and we have 64 international editions. And I say that only because my mission was feminism by stealth. People want to have fun. I don't want to be haranguing people from a pulpit every month. That's not much fun to read. But I wanted to introduce other voices and embrace this extraordinary revolution, which you are all part of making happen, which is women becoming more like men in the, or not more like men, but, and I hesitate to use the word equal because I'm constantly thinking about how I talk about these issues now, and every word is freighted. But why aren't there more women leaders? How can we address it? How do we instill women with confidence so they can go on and have what they want to have, and hopefully have it all if that's what they're after? Well, this again was just the sort of sense of, you know, there'd been all this debate, women can't fight, we don't want women on the front lines, they're not big enough, they're not strong enough. Interestingly, the most recent graduate from West Point this year, the second fittest graduate at West Point this year, across the grade, is a woman. We just sent someone to interview. She's absolutely extraordinary. But this was a fantastically decorated soldier. This is what she looks like off duty, but this is her in her day job.
Something all 4 of us worked on together was the Ban Bossy campaign. And the reason we did this is the observation, as Andrew said, that words matter. So here's what we know. We know that by junior high, by middle school, more boys than girls want to lead. And we know that that never stops. You can ask literally in junior high, or what they call middle school here, do you want to be class president? More boys than girls say yes. Do you want to be senior high school president? More boys than girls say yes. Same thing in college. When you go into the workforce, do you want to be the editor-in-chief? Do you want to be the CEO of the company? At every stage, more men than women say yes, and it starts in junior high. And when you survey, this was a partnership with the Girl Scouts, you survey girls in middle school and ask them why they don't want to lead. One of the top reasons is they don't want to be disliked. They don't want to be called bossy. And so the idea behind Ban Bossy was to try to bring to life the fact that words matter. That what we call leadership in little boys, we call bossy in little girls. And that starts us on a path to have more male leaders than female leaders. And Andrew and BBDO made something pretty incredible. This was the Cosmo stuff we did around Bossy.
Here's where I will not lead the defense that proves innocence.
Where I won't pass the bill that alters the course of history.
Or design a building that reshapes the skyline.
I won't ask the questions that change the whole conversation.
Here's where I will start to doubt myself.
Here is where I will start being interrupted.
Here's where I will stop raising my hand.
Here's where my voice will get drowned out.
Here's where I was called stubborn, pushy,
know-it-all,
aggressive, bossy. Here's where I will change it all.
We absolutely have to raise the awareness of the problems that impact women. It's not enough to say to girls, oh, you know, you've just got to go for it and feel your inner confidence. We have to support them with measures that I think really help them. And I think it's really complicated, and I think Cheryl has started a really impactful conversation, and we have to, it's a lot about language, and it's a lot about the messaging that the media gives them, and I don't want to pretend that the media is some big body that has everybody's best interest at heart. It doesn't, as you said. This is about, we're at an advertising conference, this is about selling stuff. But I really think there is a big change going on in the culture, and the truth is, within business in particular, when you remind people that this impacts directly the bottom line, it seems to be the single most effective way to actually make change.
Men? How are we going to change this for men?
I honestly think it's a huge issue because men don't talk. They certainly don't listen, but they don't even talk. And I think there is a massive kind of bottled up anxiety that's at some point it'll be dealt with. It'll be unleashed by one pivotal moment.
Once we put the awareness out there, and people like you can get a movement going behind it, and then folks like you can make editorial decisions, and people like Andrew and your customers can make those creative decisions, I think things will move relatively quickly. And I say that, you know, just like everybody else's business here, is we're very, very global. I say that really for Western Europe and the US. It's going to take longer in other markets. So I think that just, you know, there will still be this stay-at-home Mr. Mom thing for a period of time, but economics, as you said earlier, you know, we have no choice. You know, in order to survive in any major city these days, given the cost of living, etc., both in the partnership have to work, and you know, it's moving that way. So I'm pretty optimistic, but it will take time.